Active engagement. To start our activity off, or our presentation, I want you to go to this website and do the activity. It is a very simple activity to get you warmed up. You can pause during this slide to do the activity. Prior knowledge. In our strategy, one of the things is prior knowledge and intervention failures. Approximately 5% of students fail to benefit adequately from intervention programs that are effective with most students. A number of these struggling students, approximately 1 in 100, seem to have such extreme difficulty learning printed words or letter-sound relationships. That may need to be taught throughout specialized programs. This strategy focuses on reading deficiencies. Students in the top 2 tiers will be moved to Tier 3. Tier 3 are students who have struggled in the first 2 tiers and need direct one-on-one interventions. Some key vocabulary that you will need to know throughout this presentation are tracing, which is to trace letters and words, multisensory. With the upcoming strategy, you will learn a lot about multisensory abilities that play a large role. It involves the use of vision, hearing, and movements. Kinesthetics is learning by carrying out a physical activity rather than watching or listening to a lecture.
Okay, so VAKT. VAKT stands for visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and tactile. VAKT is a language experience approach to spelling and reading, and what that means is that while learning to read revolves around seeing, saying, hearing, and writing, there's another critical element that's involved in this strategy, and that's tracing. This engages the student's tactile ability. The use of these sensory abilities help in visual analysis of words and word recognition. The introduction of tracing not only adds a fresh new method to benefit student reading, the feel and movement of tracing adds to the child's source of knowledge. So there are 4 total stages in VAKT technique. The first is introductory, then there is stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. The introductory stage, its purpose is to show the student how the technique works and to convince the student that they can learn to read words by using it. For this stage, you'll need a dictionary, a writing utensil, several strips of paper 4 inches by 12 inches, a stapler, and a recording sheet. The first thing the teacher does is ask the student for a word they would like to learn. The teacher then asks how many syllables that word has. After that, the teacher asks the student to check by using a dictionary, helping as needed. Next, on the strip of paper, the student will watch as the student writes the word and continues watching as the teacher traces the word with his or her writing utensil. The student traces the word until he or she feels they can write the word from memory. The next stage, stage 1, is nearly identical to the introductory stage, the main difference being that the source of words used is different. You will see in our demonstration later how stage 1 works. So in moving from one stage to another, the teacher makes note of the student being able to recognize words more and relying less on the tracing technique. The transition from stage 1 to stage 2 happens when students are able to learn new words without the use of tracing. Stage 2, it's exactly the same as stage 1. However, rather than using the tracing technique, the student uses the teacher's strips of paper to study the word. In stage 3, the student uses the dictionary rather than the teacher written copy as a model. The student locates the word in the dictionary and checks the number of syllables. The student practices the word by saying it as a whole, in syllables, and as a whole word. When the word is mastered, he or she writes it on a note card and compares it to the word in the dictionary. If it is correct, he or she writes it from memory again. Stage 3 is discontinued when the child no longer needs it. Here's our demonstration. For this demonstration, I will be the teacher and Zach will be the student. Zach, I'd like you to tell me a story of something you did this weekend, and I'm going to write it down as you say it.
Well, when I go swimming, I walk in the water first. Then I swim under the water. I hold my breath and I get the diving sticks. Sometimes I get the sticks at 9 feet. I like to do this because it's fun.
You're right, swimming is very fun. Thank you for telling me that story. So I've written it down, and what I'd like you to do is read it back to me.
When I go, I don't know that word.
And that's fine. How many syllables do you hear in this word, swimming?
Swim me, swimming. 2.
2. Okay, let's check and see. Grab your dictionary. Where in the dictionary do you think it might be?
I think it's in the middle.
Okay.
Here it is.
Swimming, 2 syllables, you're right. So what I'm going to do is write down the word swimming, and I'd like you to watch me as I do it. So what I want to do now is to have you trace the word swimming for me.
Okay, I can do that.
Trace each letter. Try to be as accurate as possible.
S W I M I N G.
Very good. So what I'd like you to do now, after you've traced it, is try from memory to write the word swimming.
You're not going to show it to me again?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, I can try my best. S W I swim M swimming I N G.
Very good. Very good, Zach. Thank you.
The purpose of VAKT. In addition to establishing kinesthetic and tactile link and focusing attention, VAKT provides structure and support, builds on what a student knows, instills confidence, and sets high expectations for a student. VAKT also forces the student to note all the letters in a word. Most likely, it is not simply the multimodal nature of such practice that explains its powers, but the mediating effect of various sensory and motor experiences on attention and recall.
So in the first scholarly journal article I read, one of the points that it made is that there are 6 steps to VAKT that learners need to learn and to practice and to internalize. The first of these steps is to inspect the whole word to be learned. The second is to pronounce and enunciate the entire word. Next is to write the whole word while pronouncing each syllable. The next is to dot the I's and cross the T's from left to right. The fifth step is to pronounce each syllable and underline each syllable. The sixth step is to pronounce the entire word. So those are the 6 steps. The next point that the article made was about tactile technique. It's important to the learner because it engages them in breaking the word down. The next point the article made was about moving to independence. Students should be making strides to internalize the aforementioned steps in order to become a better, more independent reader.
In the article that I read, it focuses on the facts of VAKT. One of the main things it talked about were underlying problems. What they talked about was exhibiting weaknesses in underlying language skills involving phonological and orthographic processing and in building brain pathways that connect speech with print. The next one talked about links and how it focuses between visually, auditory, and kinesthetic and tactile functions. These links help in learning to read and spell. And the last one was patterns. Teaching uses all pathways in the brain simultaneously or sequentially to enhance memory and learning. Differentiating strategies. The first one we talked about was text context. Instead of having the student talk about something they did and didn't enjoy, ask them to talk about something they had fun doing, like what they did this past weekend. That'll allow them to be more involved. The next thing you can do is use different sized note cards. The farther along a student is, you can use smaller note cards since they'll have to trace less and less. And the last one we talked about was tracing. Students who struggle mightily may need to trace multiple times, or those who are farther ahead may not need to trace at all. Students excelling or struggling can also use different sized note cards. So in closing, remember, visual, eyes, auditory, ears, kinesthetic, doing, such as writing, and tactile, moving, tracing.